Hello, hey, how's it going? Welcome to part 2 of this little challenge where I try to complete a number of different tasks around my house. If you haven't already watched part 1, go and check that out first, but we did manage to complete our first 2 tasks of digging an entire potato bed and building a bat house. In the time between these videos, it was actually midsummer, which meant that we needed to buy a flag. Merja was against the pirate flag idea, but it'll happen. And also, over the past couple of weeks, we've been gifted with some of the most amazing misty weather conditions like this. Now, enough introduction, let's jump into the video. The next challenge on this 4-day weekend was to clear the designated scrap pile that had been contributed to for years from previous owners of the property. This is something we've wanted to do for ages, but out of sight, out of mind. This was hidden all the way back in the garden, so we prioritized other things. On this day, the great heap of 2025 would officially and appropriately be disposed of. First, I needed to rent a trailer. I had never towed a trailer before, and I have to say I prefer going forwards than backwards. Now, I promise I got way better as the day went on, but yeah, you can laugh at my first attempt at reversing the trailer into position. It looked so much easier from up here.
Stop! How do you want to do this?
Let's start from the top. So we set forth clearing out the scrap pile one item at a time, keeping an eye out for anything remotely interesting, but nothing really came up. Well, besides this neat looking bread delivery pallet from a company that hasn't existed since before I was born. Don't know why, but I think this is really cute.
Yeah.
This must have been from this must have been a local like a local shop back in the day called Karsten's Bröd, which is, what does Karsten mean? Is that a name?
Yeah, I guess that's the company name.
Yeah, it's a bröd, so it was probably a bakery, so this is probably what they delivered stuff in. I don't know how long ago, but it's really pretty. It's got a lot of detail on the crate.
It's a shame they didn't take care of it.
They could have kept it. Trailer in a trailer. We also had the shed to clear out, although unlike the scrap heap, there were definitely some things to keep, like these old European planers that would be really cool to see someone eventually restore, and some pieces of wood, some of which are older than my parents. But we decided to get a move on here because certain flying monstrosities were pushing Merja to the edge. Yeah.
Fucking horsefly.
Fucking horsefly. Anyway, without any hidden treasure, we got as much into the trailer as we possibly could and headed on our merry way to the dump, or recycling center, which is återvinningscentral in Swedish. It took us 2 trips in total, and we finished only 10 minutes before the dump closed for the weekend. And now our scrap heap looks like this. Heapless. We're still only halfway through day 3 though, so next challenge. I knew I'd find a time to wear these where I don't look completely ridiculous. Day 4, the final day of my long weekend, and there's one thing left to do. Give this baby the Nordic floor treatment. Yet another thing we've been holding off for the longest time, but today is the day. Before we get started, what is Nordic floor soap treatment? So, soap treatment is one of the more authentic and traditional methods for treating wooden floors in old Nordic houses, and basically it has a really lovely look to it. So it's a 100% natural treatment that has a way of preserving the natural look of the floor, keeping that raw look, all while brightening it and making it less pale, so having less of that yellow tinge to it. So if you see any of those typical traditional Swedish houses with the really light floors, this is most likely how they do it. This method isn't quite as potent as maybe the other less natural methods of treating floors, and you'll have to do it more times than you would with other solutions. But the more that you do this Nordic floor treatment, the more it will repel dirt and moisture and all that, all while making your floor brighter and brighter, paler and paler, and all the while keeping the natural look and a really nice feel to it. Now, in order to treat this floor, I'm going to be making use of this book that I've mentioned before, Stora boken om byggnadsvård by Göran Gudmundsson. But I am going to make one change, and that's to begin by cleaning the floor with warm water instead of cold water, as is shown in the book. Now that's cleared up, let's get started. Now you can't just use any soap for this floor treatment. In Sweden we use what's called linoljesåpa, linseed oil soap, not linoljesoppa, which is what I always say, which is linseed oil soup. But it's soap that's made with linseed. It's a pH balanced fatty soap that you can typically buy from basically any hardware store, at least in Sweden. Now in mine and Merja's case, we're used to making our own natural products, including soap. So we went ahead and we made our own linoljesåpa. If you're interested in learning how to make your own linseed oil soap and soap in general, Merja has a really good video, which I'll link to up in the top, my left, your right, and I'll link down below in the description as well. It's a great skill to know, it's cost efficient, and you know all the things that are going into the products you use. Those are a great 3 reasons to learn how to do it. This is the room before.
Show the edge here, because that one is super dirty.
Look at this edge, it's so dirty. So here's what you'll need. A bucket and a mop for this wet ass wood floor. Another bucket for the treatment water. Scrubbing brush. I have 2 here, this one and the one my girlfriend tells me not to worry about. The ability to have hot and cold water. And finally, the star of the show, linseed oil soap. Not the same as linseed oil. Step 1. Fill your buckets. The mop bucket should contain only hot water, while the other bucket, or container, should contain your diluted treatment. Now, how much you need of the soap depends on the condition of the floor, but if we go by the book, it recommends 10 litres of cold water to 2 to 3 deciliters of soap if the floor is really dirty. Otherwise, you are also able to put some soap on your brush when treating. Then we want to begin thoroughly cleaning the floor with the mop and the warm water. In some cases, you might find that the floor is so bad that it might need to be sanded down. Our floor just wasn't bad at all, so we decided to go straight to the cleaning. We covered the floor in a good amount of water and tried to remove as much of the loose dirt as we could. If you don't adequately soak the floor, the treatment could leave soap spots and marks that you don't want. So it's going to start off a bit darker because it's wet, of course, and then it should get way lighter. We will see. Then we started with the treatment. The way I did this was by just simply dipping the brush into the treatment water and scrubbing the floor with the brush. You want to brush in the direction of the wood, and the book says 2 to 3 boards at a time. You can also add the concentrated soap directly onto the brush and then scrub intensely for those stains that are really hard to get off. Once you scrub the section you were working on, you want to simply rinse it off with cold water and use the wrung out mop to clean up everything. Now, you don't want the treatment to be left on the floor too long because it will turn the floor kind of yellow and it will darken it instead of lighten. And then on top of that, it will also set with all the dirt still on the floor, which isn't ideal, of course. And then you repeat with the remaining boards until the whole floor is done. In our case, we went over the floor a second round. However, instead of using warm water this time to soak the floor, we used cold water. Although it didn't say so in the book, we read that warm water on the first coat is better for opening the pores of the wood to help clean them, and then in the following rounds we're all about closing the pores because we've already adequately removed all the dirt. And here is the finished floor. This floor really wasn't that bad compared to other floors, so the difference isn't quite as dramatic as it would be with other rooms, like the kitchen, for example. But it does look significantly brighter, and the more we do it, the brighter it will get and the paler it will get. So that's awesome. But the main things I'm noticing right now is a really nice smell that I don't know how to subscribe. A really nice smell that I don't know how to describe. And then the feel of the floor, which is also something that I don't know if I'm going to be able to describe. I'm wearing socks to save you from too much of my feet, but it's a really soft texture. It's kind of like, if I had to describe it in one way, it's kind of like walking on, like, it's almost like velvet is how I would describe it. It's velvet wood. So yeah, overall, I recommend it. If you're in a traditional Swedish house with wooden floors that need to be treated, 100% recommend this wooden floor treatment. Floor is done. So there we have it, a 4-day weekend that I feel is going to be a really long video. Maybe I'll have to split it up into 2 parts, we'll see. Now, did I end up getting everything I wanted done in 4 days? Well, no, close, but not quite. The second coat of the floor treatment was actually done on day 5 after I'd finished work. So I guess technically that's a fail and I'm never going to forgive myself. But no, actually I'm pretty proud of myself for being able to do so much in such a short period of time. And to be honest, I'm just really relieved that I finally get to show a video where it's not knee deep of snow and I'm complaining about it. So yeah, that's a nice change. I've had a few comments saying that I don't get summers where I live, but I do. It does get warm here, and now you've seen it. But I did notice something a little bit more profound from my 4-day weekend, and that is just how much better I felt in my body and my mind from doing the following. From, first of all, focusing on one task at a time. Number 2, making sure that the work that I did wasn't too biased towards mentally stimulating tasks. And number 3, removing all distractions so that the task I was doing had most all of my attention. I've mentioned this before, but outside of YouTube, I am a UX designer. It's a normal 9-to-5 job. It's an office job, lots of thinking, not a lot of moving. And it feels quite easy in that type of environment to become overwhelmed quite quickly because the signals of fatigue are just not as obvious as when you're mentally exhausted. And on top of that, the idea of recovering mentally just seems a little bit more ambiguous than recovering physically, resting sore muscles. It isn't obvious, to me at least, what recovery even is when we're talking about the brain. So how that will present in my life is that I will try to get as much done as possible at once. And as I said before, inevitably, I'm going to solve less. I'll finish my workday, and of course I'll feel a bit tired, but at the same time I'm feeling anxious to want to do something to be productive. So what might be the case is that I watch a few videos or I listen to a podcast while working out or going for a walk. And the thing is that now there's a huge disparity between the day that my brain has had and the day that my body has had. The brain is being constantly worked. It never gets a break, even when you consider it winding down by watching a TV show or a movie or listening to a podcast. The balance between consumption and creation is super out of whack. And similarly, my body really just hasn't done anything for the entire day. So at least for my day-to-day and what I imagine to be many other people's day-to-day, there's very little connection between what the mind does and what the body does. And so maybe what I thought to be mental exhaustion is actually just the need for physical exertion and a quieter mind, I guess. It's interesting because over these past 4 days, it's been nothing but intention and a whole different world to my day-to-day. I set out only focusing on one task at a time. When I completed the task, I used that motivation that I got from completing the task to propel me into the next task, which made me feel more productive in the long run, but probably less productive in the moment, if that makes sense. As well as this, rather than being sedentary and using primarily my brain in order to complete tasks, the tasks I chose were more balanced, and it felt like for once my body and my brain were working towards the same end goal. And I don't know if that has any effect whatsoever. I don't know if that's a thing, but it made me feel a lot more content, I guess. That it feels like my brain and my body were on the same page. And then instead of listening to music or a podcast or a video or whatever, I allowed myself to think and process the things that had been tangled up in my mind for God knows how long. I paid a lot of attention to my surroundings. And it's weird because I saw the same things that I would otherwise if I was distracted. Nothing changed there, but it was the way I interpreted it. I was processing my surroundings rather than half processing them. The birds especially, I even started recording the birds because there were some birds that I just had never heard before, and some birds that I hadn't heard in a long time, like the nostalgia bird, which I found out was just a pigeon, a woodland pigeon. I downloaded an app called Merlin, not sponsored, but basically you can identify birds from the sound. And so I'll put the list up on the screen and you can see all the birds that I found in the 4 days. It's really super cool. I never thought I'd get to the time where I'd be interested in bird sounds, but here I am. The quietness also got me thinking about convenience and helped me unpack a lot of the ways that I think about things in general. And I think that's really interesting and something that I probably want to make a video on, actually. Just face-to-face chat type of video. I don't know. I know how it feels to be present, of course, but mostly in short spells. And even though I'm very aware of how distracted the world has become, I'm only starting to realize how far I let it get in my own life. Anyway, topic for another day. Before I say goodbye, I realized that we still need to hang up the bat house, so let's quickly do that. So we have the wildlife camera and it's got motion detectors and it is pointed right at the bat house. So if we get any motion, we'll see it on the camera and we can test to see if bats have come. Nice. I'm gonna get down. So this side of the house gets way less sun, so it's probably going to be a bit better for the house. I hung it up as high as I could, but realistically there was very little I could do. And now that we've got the camera there, it's going to be really exciting to see if we can find any bats, and hopefully they're going to use our house. But that is all for today. If you're still here, I'm very impressed. I couldn't listen to myself that long. But if you like the video, please leave a thumbs up. Please subscribe, because there are a bunch of videos like this that I want to get done. So stick around for that. Until then, catch you later.